In an explosive moment on The View, Bill Maher took no prisoners as he exposed Sunny Hostin's hypocrisy, leaving the entire panel speechless. With his signature blend of sharp wit and unflinching honesty, Maher dismantled Hostin's arguments and shined a light on the flaws of the woke narrative, sparking applause from both the studio audience and viewers at home. This heated exchange is not to be miswatched, as Maher takes down the left's talking points in a way only he can. But before we dive in, comment below where you are watching us from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Bill Maher's appearance on The View was anything but ordinary. What began as a simple PR move to promote his latest book quickly turned into a fiery clash between Maher and the show's co-host, Sunny Hostin. The exchange escalated as Maher, known for his sharp wit and no-holds-barred approach, dissected the idea of the woke culture with surgical precision, leaving Hostin and the rest of the panel on the defensive. What made this debate even more striking was that Maher, who often aligns himself with liberal viewpoints, wasn't afraid to call out the very movement he has long been associated with, and it left everyone watching in shock. The issue at the heart of the disagreement was the term woke, which has become a symbol of progressive values, but has also drawn significant backlash in recent years. In the first segment of their discussion, Hostin questioned Maher's use of the term, asserting that woke had been weaponized and bastardized by the right to make it synonymous with something negative. Hostin's main point was that woke, historically a term used by the black community to denote awareness of social injustices, had been hijacked and twisted by conservative circles for political gain. Maher didn't shy away from the challenge, but rather turned Hostin's accusation on its head. He clarified that he didn't say that woke was ruining everything. Rather, he argued that it was a term that had contributed to the possible re-election of Donald Trump. According to Maher, the very extremities of the woke culture, the way it had evolved, had made it an issue that could push moderate voters away and actually help Trump's political fortunes. Maher made a powerful distinction, explaining that woke was originally a positive term meant to bring attention to injustice, but over time, it had morphed into something much more radical. Maher's point was simple yet profound. Words change, and so does their meaning. He didn't deny that being woke once stood for a crucial awareness of social issues, but he argued that the term had become so co-opted and misused that it no longer conveyed its original meaning. Hostin, however, wasn't buying this perspective. She tried to paint Maher as a hypocrite, accusing him of undermining the very culture he had once supported. But Maher was far from backing down. With his usual sharpness, he refused to be cornered, and instead, he used Hostin's argument to further expose how the left had changed over the years. One of the most striking moments of the debate came when Maher boldly criticized the woke left's support for Hamas, a terrorist group known for its extreme ideology and violent actions against Israel. Maher's comments shocked both Hostin and the viewers. He questioned the moral clarity of those who protested in support of Hamas, pointing out the absurdity of supporting a group that stands for the complete destruction of Israel. Maher's logic was simple. If you want to align yourself with a cause that fights for justice, you shouldn't be supporting an organization that stands for genocide. He compared the oppressive situation in Gaza to the freedoms enjoyed in Israel, specifically in Tel Aviv, a city known for its modern values and tolerance, even amidst a volatile region. Maher's criticism of Hamas was not only about the group itself, but also about the double standards within the woke movement. He pointed out that people who claim to care about human rights and social justice, particularly women's rights, should be horrified at the conditions in Gaza. He asked the panel, would you really want to live in Palestine, where women's rights are severely restricted? This was a direct challenge to Hostin and others who, despite their progressive values, had failed to recognize the contradictions in their stances. Maher emphasized that if these activists truly cared about freedom and equality, they would not be championing the very forces that oppress women and minorities. Maher's point about women's rights was devastating. He spoke about how women in many Muslim-majority countries, including those with a significant percentage of left-leaning support, suffer from extreme gender inequality. In countries like these, women often don't have the same rights as men in terms of education, dress, speech, and opportunities. Maher argued that if Hostin and her colleagues were truly committed to women's rights, they would be outspoken against the gender apartheid that exists in these countries. His argument was simple. If you're going to advocate for equality, you must be consistent, and that means calling out the injustices wherever they exist. As the debate continued, Maher became increasingly frustrated by the panel's refusal to address these contradictions. He mentioned how in many parts of the world, particularly in some Muslim-majority nations, women are denied basic human rights, including reproductive rights, freedom from sexual violence, and access to education. He also pointed out the fact that the LGBTQ+ community is often persecuted in these places, which directly contradicts the values of freedom and equality that the woke left claims to fight for. His message was clear. You can't advocate for social justice while ignoring the oppression of women and minorities in these parts of the world. But Maher didn't stop there. His criticism wasn't just directed at the left's support of Hamas. He also pointed out how the left's selective outrage had skewed its priorities. He noted that while the woke movement was quick to call out Israel, they were silent when it came to the harsh realities faced by people in countries that actually oppress women, LGBTQ+ individuals, and religious minorities. In essence, Maher accused the woke left of being more focused on virtue signaling than on addressing real-world issues. Maher's comments were met with visible discomfort from Hostin and other panel members. But rather than shying away, Maher dug in deeper, calling out the left's moral inconsistencies. He pointed out that the left, which once prided itself on being the champion of human rights, had now embraced positions that were anything but progressive. In his view, the rise of the woke culture had led to a moral paradox where the left was unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths and contradictions within its own ranks. By the end of the segment, it was clear that Maher wasn't just criticizing the term woke. He was calling out the entire ideology and the radical shift he believed it had undergone. His remarks were not a rejection of social justice, but a warning about how movements can be co-opted and twisted into something unrecognizable. He argued that the left needed to return to its roots of advocating for genuine equality, not just jumping on the bandwagon of every trendy cause that fit the narrative. He ended the exchange with a strong message. The left, to be taken seriously, had to be honest with itself about the contradictions within its own ranks and stop supporting ideologies that undermine its core values. In the end, Maher's takedown of Hostin wasn't just about a single debate. It was a public reckoning with the state of the left, and particularly the rise of the woke movement, which, according to Maher, had become a force that needed to be questioned and reevaluated. For those watching, the exchange served as a powerful reminder of the importance of consistency in the fight for social justice. As Maher put it, if you truly care about equality, you can't pick and choose when to fight for it. You have to be consistent across the board. The clash between Maher and Hostin may have been a microcosm of the larger ideological battle on the left, but it also served as a wake-up call to all who consider themselves part of the progressive movement. True social justice cannot be selective, and it cannot be hijacked by radical forces. In a recent heated discussion on a popular talk show, Maher faced off with the host, who initially tried to paint him as someone supporting violence against innocent civilians. This was a common tactic used by some when their arguments start to crumble, resort to moral grandstanding. But Maher saw it coming from a mile away and responded firmly. He explained that it was a war, and in war, defending oneself is necessary. He stated that Israel had been attacked multiple times by Hamas, and it was their responsibility to defend themselves. The host, realizing she had no ground left to stand on, pressed on, asking if Hamas needed to be destroyed. Maher was clear in his answer. Yes, they must be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization with a stated goal of committing genocide against the Jewish people. He elaborated, pointing out that Hamas had started multiple wars after receiving land and international aid, yet they chose to spend that money on weapons and bombs instead of improving the lives of their own people. Maher's response was straightforward. The ongoing conflict was a war, and sometimes in war, tough decisions must be made to secure a nation's safety. The host's attempt to shift the focus failed miserably. Maher countered by saying that the war wouldn't stop with a ceasefire. Instead, the attacks needed to stop for peace to even begin. This response resonated deeply with the audience. As Ma didn't just engage in a back and forth. He dismantled the host's points with precision. Ma wasn't done yet. In the next round of questioning, the host asked if the media was skewing the news to fit a certain narrative. Ma, known for his sharp critiques of the woke culture, wasted no time in addressing it. He explained how the ultra-left often sacrifice the truth to push their own agenda, one where people are canceled if they question the narrative. According to Ma, truth didn't matter to them as much as forcing their beliefs on everyone. He argued that this was a tactic used to silence dissent and undermine the values that America was built on. The host, visibly flustered, didn't seem to know how to respond. Ma's words rang out in the room, and the audience couldn't help but applaud his brilliance. Even some of the left-leaning panelists in the studio audience seemed impressed by his calm, methodical way of calling out the hypocrisy of the woke mindset. But Ma wasn't finished. In a last-ditch effort to discredit him, the host tried accusing him of abandoning his liberal views. Ma was ready. He explained that he considered himself an old-school liberal who still believed in social justice, but not the kind that kept people stuck in their misery. He pointed out that real social justice involved finding practical solutions, like helping homeless people off the streets and into safe shelters, rather than indulging in ideology that perpetuated the problem. He contrasted this with the woke mindset, which he argued was more concerned with maintaining a narrative, even if it meant leaving people to suffer on the streets for the sake of a political point. Ma's analogy was stark. An old-school liberal would work to provide a better life for homeless people, while the woke mob would rather leave them in their suffering, as though it were part of some idealized endangered species narrative. His sharp wit and sarcasm shone through, and the audience seemed to catch the truth of his words. It wasn't about compassion. It was about pushing a narrative. Ma's ability to articulate the difference was a lesson in how to navigate the complexities of social issues without falling into ideological traps. The audience, both in the studio and online, was quick to praise Ma for his insightful and calm takedown of the woke agenda. On social media, viewers hailed him as someone who had dismantled the left's narrative with unmatched clarity and precision. One fan wrote, "I've never seen anyone destroy the liberal woke narrative so calmly and eloquently." Ma's critique didn't stop at just the woke mob. He also directed some pointed remarks at President Biden. He questioned Biden's ability to lead, citing concerns about his age and the way he presented himself in public. Ma pointed out that, while Biden was the same age as Trump, the latter appeared more energetic and sharper, something that couldn't be ignored in a leader. He even compared Biden to a cadaver, making the comparison in a humorous yet harsh way. Ma's comments sparked further conversation, with many suggesting that Biden might not be the one truly calling the shots in the White House. His remarks added a layer of intrigue to the ongoing speculation about who the real power players behind the scenes might be. By the end of the show, Ma had thoroughly dismantled the host's arguments and exposed the flaws in the left-wing narrative. His words cut through the noise, leaving his critics speechless and making it clear that he wasn't afraid to challenge the woke agenda. The woke mob, according to Ma, had been exposed as a group focused more on pushing their narrative than on addressing real issues. Ma's appearance on the show wasn't just an interview. It was a masterclass in confronting the woke agenda and calling out hypocrisy. He showed that, even when faced with tough questions, it's possible to stay calm, be logical, and speak truth to power. His words resonated with viewers from all sides of the political spectrum, showing that there is still room for honest discourse in an increasingly polarized world. As Ma's segment wrapped up, it was clear that his take on the issues had struck a nerve. The woke narrative had been challenged, and the discussion would no doubt continue long after the episode aired. For now, Ma's powerful critique remained a shining example of how to take on the woke agenda without flinching. If you enjoyed this takedown, hit the like button and subscribe for more epic breakdowns of the woke world. You won't want to miss our next video. See you then. Bye.